Readers Entertainment Radio presents Booklights with your host, author Lisa Kessler. Booklights, where we're shining a light on good books.
Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for tuning into Booklights today. I can't believe we're halfway through summer and heading into August. And with that comes new books that are coming out. And today we have author Joel McKay on. And if you haven't read his books or short stories yet, you are in for a treat. His first full novel comes out August 15th. So we'll be talking about that. And if you haven't read his work yet, let me read his bio so you can get to know him. Joel McKay is an award-winning writer based in northern British Columbia. His fiction includes the fantasy adventure novel that comes out next month in August, the Dungeoneers and the Treasure of Roan, the werewolf novella, Wolf at the Door, which you can read now, and a short dark fiction anthology, It Came from the Trees and Other Violent Aberrations. His short fiction has been published by Tyche Books, Eerie River Publishing, Sley House Publishing, Brigids Gate Press, Black Cat Books, and others. When not writing, he can be found fishing, hiking, biking, or exploring the wilds of beautiful British Columbia with his family. You can learn more at his website, which you can find the link in the show notes, so you can check out. His blog is fun and full of photos and updates about what's coming. So without any further delay, you there, Joel?
I am here.
All right.
Ready, willing, and able. I think.
Okay, good. Is it warming up there in British Columbia? Are you having summer?
It's clear. It's a clear blue sky day and 30 degrees today. So of course 30 Celsius, which I'm thinking is in the 90s, around 90 Fahrenheit ish. So
yeah,
pretty normal sunny day in the summer here.
Nice. So you guys get shorts weather up there in Canada.
Oh, we sure do. Yeah. You're pretty much shorts and t-shirt in this part, and I'm in northern British Columbia, so I'm a ways up.
Okay.
But from probably May to end of September, sometimes into October, you're shorts, t-shirt.
Oh, nice. Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so it's not that different than like if you're on the East Coast in the US. I'd say it's a lot like maybe Pennsylvania, actually.
Oh, okay.
I'd say you're kind of similar to that. So yeah, it's a lot of people think it's igloos and snow and everything, but
I know
one of the best kept secrets is actually it's quite beautiful and mild here, and there's not a lot of people, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, right. Well, I just finished binge watching North of North, and I don't know if you've seen it, but yeah, anybody who hasn't seen it, you should definitely check it out. It was really cute, but that's what I associate with, the Great White North up there. So
yeah, and that in that particular show, I think they're actually up in Nunavut, in the territories, which is way further north in here, like way further, and so it is quite a bit different up there. But even if you get up into the territories in the summer, and I've spent some time up there, it's also quite beautiful and warm.
Nice.
From sort of mid-May, late May to early September. So.
All right. Well, you have a new book that's coming out August 15th, and I love the title, The Dungeoneers and the Treasure of Roan. Can you tell everybody about it and why they should go pre-order? It's up for pre-order now everywhere.
Yeah, you should go buy it because it's awesome and it's a ton of fun. It's a page turner. It's humorous. It's a father-son story about two thieves. It's set in a sword and sorcery high fantasy environment. And it's about two thieves who are father and son, but actually really don't like one another. They had a falling out a few years before. They accidentally, on purpose, run into each other, and then are forced to work together and resolve their relationship as they chase down this treasure in this massive underground abandoned city. And so it is a classic adventure novel, fantasy adventure novel in that sense, something similar to what you would have found in the paperback section in the 80s and 90s, which is what I grew up with and love. Mm-hmm. And it was a ton of fun to write. And it wasn't until a couple of years after I had written it and then gone through and edited it that I realized it's actually young adult. So despite more than a few four-letter words in it, It is actually mostly a young adult, sort of targeting 14 plus as the age category for it. So yeah, that's the Dungeoneers and the Treasure of Roan. And I picked that title because I wanted it to harken back to like those sort of serialized, fun adventure stories from back in the day.
Right. And is this going to be a series? Will the Dungeoneers have other adventures?
Yeah, I've already written the first chapter of the next novel, and so I would like to keep coming back to this world. If that wasn't the original intent, the original intent was actually I just had this idea in my head and I wanted to get it out. And I realized as I got toward the end of this one and then eventually started going through the editing process for publication that I thought actually this would be a lot of fun as a series of books if I can come up with the ideas, which is always the some of the hard part, right?
Right, right. Well, I was going to ask what inspired this? Where did this idea come from?
I was in a number of years ago. I take occasional writing retreats, and I'll leave my home in Prince George for a couple of days, and I'll go out into the sort of the wilderness. And I went down into a section of British Columbia called the Robson Valley, which has two big mountain spans on either side of the valley and a river cutting through it, and a couple of really small towns, and towns of like 400 people, and it's 2 hours from anywhere that's of you and I would consider a sizable place where you can get like a fast food burger or something like that. And so
Right.
I was down there writing for a couple of days. I was working on horror stories actually, and it was the middle of winter, and I had this idea of a fortress on one side of the valley and an abandoned city on the other, and a thief running up the side of the mountain and disappearing into that abandoned city. And it just stuck in my head, and I kind of was like, well, who is this, and where's he going, and what's he after? And so I started toying with it, and eventually found the story. But the geography, the place, is very much inspired by the Robson Valley, northern British Columbia, and even some of the world building is based more on a Canadian setting than an American one, for sure.
And do you feel like you were pulling from, you mentioned, 90s fantasy adventure, were you pulling from those worlds? Because usually when you're writing horror, it's set in today's world, but you're writing now, this is a fantasy. So how did that all gel together?
Yeah, it definitely was. So I'm a big fan of, at least when I was 14, but still, Dragonlance and Forgotten Realms. So
Mhm.
I probably used my own experiences with Dungeons and Dragons, TSR, and then eventually Wizards of the Coast, and how they structured some of those paperback novels as a baseline structure, an informing structure for this one. And then it's a darker fantasy, so it is young adult, but I would say I can never fully get away from the horror version of me,
Uh-huh.
and the complexity of characters, and the struggles they have. I'm a big fan of flawed characters and working through some of those things, both their own personal issues and their relationships with one another. And so that I think it comes back to a lot of the horror reading I've done, some of the fantasy that Stephen King has come out with, but then going way, way back to one of my favorite authors of all time, Robert E. Howard, who was considered the inventor of sword and sorcery with Conan the Barbarian and others, was definitely a driving force for that. So as opposed to the horror that I've written where you don't really have to do any world building, in this case, I did. And so there was extensive world building to help me understand where I was going, what this place was, but only insofar as it served the story. So this is not going to be a book where you're going to find 3 pages of dense history and names and all that other kind of stuff and things have gone
Yeah, it's
on.
not a Tolkien.
No, it isn't at all. Love Tolkien, like I read all that as well, and George R. R. Martin and Robert Jordan, and I love that fantasy. But I'm not a writer of that fantasy. I'm a writer of the world building it is there, it's baked in, and it's consistent. But it's only in the text insofar as it serves the story that I'm trying to tell.
Right. Do you feel like that leaves you with more to explore when you write further adventures?
Yeah, it does. Yeah, and sort of build on the lore. I think it gives you more flexibility around it. And I think it adds a layer of mystery because not everything is explained. So like for example, there's extensive magic and creatures and all the stuff that exist in this world. But I purposefully didn't really explain a lot of like the magic system and how that works. Because I've always been a fan of like that there's mystery around magic. And like
Right.
how does that work? Now, how it's deployed and how it works, there has to be rules and they have to be consistent and believable in that world. But I don't think you need to overly explain it. And I think that actually probably harkens back to a bit of Tolkien. Tolkien never really explained how the magic system worked in Middle Earth, just that it was there. And he
And
had
that
a lot
it's different. It's different for different races too.
It
So you
is,
might
yeah,
have a magic
it is.
wielder who can do this, but then there's a magic wielder who can do that, you know?
You got it. Yeah, you got it. And I definitely also probably going back to, you know, what I like in dungeon crawling adventures, which is what this is that everywhere you look, there's some piece of treasure or some magic item or something hanging around. So
Right.
I think that that's not only from sort of books I've read, but that's also from video games, you know, loot-based
Mhm.
video games. It is definitely playing on that bit of a trope because I love that. I think other people love that, where around any corner could be a hidden bit of history or a magical artifact that can inform the story and keep things going, right? It kind of keeps a bit of surprise and energy.
I was going to ask you too, because when I read fantasy, I don't write fantasy, but when I read fantasy, there is a difference between a creature and a monster. A creature might have a soul and be a helpful member of your troop, whereas a monster just wants to eat you. Do you have
Yep.
both? Do you
Yep.
have both of those in your world?
Yeah, I do. There's that's a really insightful point. It makes me think of the Witcher books because I think that was one of the
Yes.
underlying themes of what he was trying to get across through Geralt and how Geralt saw the world. But yes, in this book there is a difference. There are just the monsters in the
Right.
dungeon that chase people down and sort of further the plot and the story to go along. And then there's creatures that are intelligent, that maybe help you out, maybe they're ambivalent, and they exist in this world too. And I think it's important to have both because I think we know in our world, the so-called real world, that like there's all like the world is full of life and different life forms. Like everywhere you look, there's
Right.
different life forms with different types of intelligence and skills and all those types of things. And so why wouldn't a fantasy world be that rich with just fill it up to the brim with magic and creatures and people and all that other kind of stuff. And I think the trick for us as writers is to try and keep some level of consistency so that it is at least believable for the reader, which is hilarious, right? I mean, nonfiction doesn't have to be believable because
Right.
it's what happened. Fiction has to be believable to some
Yes.
degree, right? Like in order to
Yes.
keep people going along. So you kind of got to keep that in your head when you're writing.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of series. And so I don't really keep a Bible. Like some of my friends will have spreadsheets. I usually keep a running Word doc next to it. And when something important, like a new person shows up, I'll write down what they look like and all. But
Yeah.
how did you keep track of your world as it keeps expanding? Because some of my series books, you know, I'm like, oh my God, I have like 45 pages to search through to find this one. What college did they go to? You know, so how did you handle that?
Well, it's interesting. I did it in kind of two ways that helped me out. So prior to writing this book, I had been trying to write a science fiction that was based in the near future of northern British Columbia for years. And and I may still write it. And the idea with that was the concept was reclamation, that basically in the future, what's going to happen is we've destroyed the environment to such a degree that governments are just going to actually depopulate the earth and centralize, and that computers are going to stop being mechanical or chips, and they're actually going to be organic like brains. And that humans get into this world where we reclaim the land back to its previous wilderness. We emigrate away from it, and we create guardians through technology to protect it so that people don't get in there, which introduces weird creatures and weird things. And so, but I could never really wrap my head around what the actual story was within that. And so I created this entire world. But one thing I knew about it was that the science fiction story in the near future, 10,000 years from now, leads to the fantasy story. And so I had built that world and had years of like notes and all that other kind of stuff and ideas around like, what if like the humans were going to create guardians? What would they look like? Would they just be like robots, or would they be biological creatures? What would keep people out? And so you start getting ideas like, well, a dragon would keep people out. Like if we could create dragons, I mean, Jurassic Park's about bringing back dinosaurs. Why wouldn't you just create a dragon if you had that power, right? And you start to get into this place where you realize that, if the possibilities are unlimited, then human imagination and creativity is going to take over. And suddenly this world could start looking like a bit of a fantasy setting. And so that was the bridge, and that became the formation for the world building. So I was quite familiar with the world that I was in. I did two other things that helped. One was the geography is based on the geography of the Robson Valley. So I just used that. And so it's literally like the Ribbon River is the Fraser River, and where Fort Shatterstill is the Caribou Mountains, and where Roan is the Rocky Mountains. And I just changed out the names for it because the idea, again, the baseline idea was this is actually Earth, but it's Earth.
They've
many
changed
thousands
the
of years.
names. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And now I don't actually unpack any of this in the novel. There's suggestions and there's hints that this is the case. If you comb through the book, you can kind of find that was what was in my head, but I don't really get into that background because it doesn't serve the story. But that helped me a lot with keeping world building consistency. And then the other thing is I got a map creating software.
Fun.
And so I actually created a map for it to understand distances and timelines, and then figure out what, kind of what's the city look like and how does that play out. The hard part was the consistency around sort of magic items, who has what and sort of when. And so that I haven't quite figured out how to do well as an author yet. So there was a lot of back and forth in the script to just say, what did you put on page 50? Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, okay, I gotta go back to that and make sure it's consistent. Yeah. And that's where an editor comes in too, is you hire somebody to, take a look at it and for consistency, right? And make sure that you're, referring to things correctly and throughout the text.
Right. One of my favorite editor notes, and I tend to be a rushing writer, so I'm like, to the next thing. And one of my editor notes was like, whoa, when did we get in the hospital? I was like, oh, whoops. A nurse walks in with a chart, and my editor's like, whoa, when did we get in the hospital? I'm like, okay, missing piece. Okay.
Yeah. And I've got, to that point, I do that too. Like I can easily have a day, because I'm a pantser, right? Like I don't actually plot things out much until I get to the last third and I have to wrap it up. Then I start plotting out chapter by chapter. But those first 2/3, I kind of free write just what's in my head and let the story go. And so I've had similar issues where you're kind of like, well, how did that work? And this story is tough because it jumps around in time. So you've got your main story where you're kind of, you're going through the dungeon adventure, and it's told from two characters' perspectives, the father and the son, who are both thieves. But then it jumps back in time, and it has flashback chapters for each of them that actually trace their relationship and how it came apart. And so one of the things I had to figure out was a timeline of, okay, so your first flashback is Wincott, who's the father, and this is 15 years ago. The next flashback is Sish, who's the son, and this one is gonna be 10 years ago, and then move forward in time and make sure that was consistent too. That got complicated.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
That got complicated. Yeah.
Well, since you were a pantser for most of the book, did you have any without spoilers, did you have any big surprises? What was your biggest surprise writing the book where you're like, wait, what is happening?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the big surprises was who Sish's father really is and whether or not that matters. So I won't give that away, but it's an indicator. And it kind of is, indicated very early on in the book,
And you hadn't
what,
planned that. Ah, I
no,
love it. I love it. That's
no,
my favorite part of
um,
writing is when we get a
yeah,
surprise and we're like, wait, what is happening?
yeah, there was, there was characters that popped up, the items that popped up, and then like different mixtures because the characters get separated at times, and then it was like, okay, well, who ends up with who? And it was like, well, actually I can't really rewrite and control this, so it's just this is who ended up with who in the situation. Okay, well, what does that look like now? So I had surprises, and then, okay, how does that play out? There's one chapter that I don't think is giving anything too much away, but a couple of characters have to cross a lake in the underground city, and it's the second one they have to cross while they're there. And there's an incident with mirror versions of themselves on the underside
Ah,
of the underside of the water, who are trying to get into their reality and flip the canoe over, and they end up in that really tough spot. And that whole idea came out of nowhere. Like that was just like, oh,
wow.
that'd be a fun little chapter to write, of little,
Yeah.
little side adventure.
Right. Oh, that's so cool. Um, so I want to just touch on really quick a book that people can get right now, Wolf at the Door, which sounds
Yeah.
like a totally different animal because it's more horror and it sounds
Yeah.
sort of funny. Is it funny?
Yeah, it's a horror comedy. It's a novella, so it's an afternoon read. It's about Thanksgiving, a family that gets together for a Thanksgiving dinner. Think of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation. So
Oh,
everybody's getting
fun.
together, but they don't really like each other or they have issues. And then that's the first act of this disastrous dinner party at Thanksgiving, which is in October in Canada. So it's a Halloweeny kind of story.
Halloween. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then halfway through you get into the second act, which is when the werewolves show up and start slaughtering everybody,
Ah,
and
as you
they and
do.
then, yeah, as you do, and then everybody has to figure out how to get over themselves and survive the night and what that looks like. So yeah, it's a horror comedy. It's a creature feature and I guess a bit of a slasher, but it is ultimately it's supposed to be a fun read, and that's the feedback I've gotten from
Hmm.
audiences on it. But it is completely different than the Dungeoneers. Wolf at the Door is an adult book with adult situations and a lot of blood and gore. And the Dungeoneers is not that in that way.
Fun. I always do. I'm a big Halloween girl, and I always do my Halloween movie countdown. And I try to put different movies and flip favorites and new ones. And so I have a werewolf list, and
Yeah,
that reminds me of American Werewolf in London. Where
yeah,
it was
yeah.
very gory, but it was so funny. Like he would go in that movie theater, and there's his friend more decomposed every time, telling him, "You got to kill yourself."
For sure. Yeah, it's that's a good movie. I do the same thing too, which is the Halloween horror countdown. So I do my
Yes,
31 movies.
I know
Yeah.
it's the best. I can't wait. I've been watching new ones, so I'm like, yes, makes the list. No, it does not.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, absolutely. I do the same thing. Yeah. Oh, yeah, this one's getting filed away. It's coming out in October for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I gotta ask, do you still play Dungeons and Dragons? Is it inspiring more ideas?
Haven't. I was playing with my nephew for the longest time, and he moved to a different city, and so we kind of broke apart. And I haven't found a crew, so I've got to find a crew at some point in time and get back into it. But my brother and I still play a game that came out in the '90s and is really late '80s. Actually, has had a resurgence, and we play it whenever we get together. It's called Hero Quest, and it's
I
like a
used to play Hero Quest.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
like a dumbed down version of Dungeons and Dragons, but they've actually reissued it with a whole bunch of expansion packs and stuff. So I'm a big fan of Hero Quest, and have been playing it since the late '80s, and still play it as often as I can with my brother. And he's gotten his kids into it, and mine will hopefully get into it in the coming years.
Yeah. Oh, fun. Well, before we run out of time, how should readers get in touch with you when they get this book and it hits their Kindle and they're like, oh my God, are you on social media? Do
Yeah.
they sign up on your website? How can they get in touch?
Yeah. So you can find me on Instagram and Threads as author_Joel_McKay, and then the same on Twitter and LinkedIn. You can find me Joel C. McKay on both of those, and then my website, joelmckay.ca. And you can sign up for the newsletter, so get regular updates on what's going on and information and all that other kind of stuff, so that you know when I've got new releases coming out or other things going on, plus some writing here and there. But those are the best places to link up with me. And of course, you can always buy all my stuff on Amazon. The pre-sales are up for the ebook right now for the Dungeoneers, so go out there and get it. And print will be available August 15th.
Exciting. And one more thing before I let you go, what is next after this book comes out? Do you have another book coming, or what's next for you?
Yeah. So I've written another novel. It's cosmic horror set on the BC coast. And so it's back to the adult scary story realm. And I think it's terrifying. We'll see. Maybe just the writing is terrifying. I don't know. But I'm in the process of starting to edit that now and hope to have it out in the next couple of years.
Okay, great. Well, everybody run out and pre-order Dungeoneers and the Treasure of Roan. And also be sure that you go ahead and give it a read, review it, because for authors to get more books out in a series, it's really important that the books have a sales record. So
Yep.
Help an author out, go pre-order. And August 15th is the big launch day. It'll hit your Kindle, and it sounds like it's so much fun. So thanks so much for being here today, Joel.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. It was awesome to chat with you. Take care.
All right, you too.
Thanks for joining us on Booklights. Be sure to connect with us at www.readersentertainment.com for articles, blogs, videos, and podcasts that matter to readers.